All right, guys. Welcome to Content Corner, formerly podcast help desk. We're gonna be talking about all kinds of content. This is live streams, podcast, YouTube channels, writing. I write and I podcast. I started doing these shows live streaming with Matt. Was actually the one that pulled me into that with Parapost Network. This is going out to the Haunted Encounters page. This is usually where I put this content if I do it once a month. It's the first of the year. Like, a lot of people right now are looking at their content. You're looking at what you're wanting to do with your show, and you're reevaluating. You're looking at the goals for the show. You're looking at the content that you're putting out. Maybe you're looking at performance. Maybe you're wondering how to look at performance. So I am here with paranormal consultant Matt Barron. He's been doing content for uh, as long as I have, and I think he's also been ghost hunting and in the paranormal for about as long as I have.
Yeah, I think we figured it out. Like you and I started the podcasting and this type of networking around the same time. I mean, you're thinking like months apart, just months apart. And yeah, the paranormal. Yeah, we're right about 20 years apiece.
Yep. We did this. There's been a couple of iterations of my show, Ghost Hunter Advice, updates with some of the design elements. We've done updates with the show format, which I hope you guys are liking the new show format and the different little mini series that we're doing on that. If you haven't already, you can follow Ghost Hunter Advice. Just head to ghosthunteradvice.com. You can see it right there on the screen. You can sign up, ask questions, but it is, I think both of our content and the way that we do stuff is really driven by the engagement of the audience. We go about it two different ways. You're more into the live stream. I'm more into the podcast. So my interaction tends to be more email based or questions that come in through the website. And yours is spur of the moment. It's you do a show, people ask while you're on camera, and there's no prep work or anything. You're just shooting from the hip.
Yeah, even the shows themselves.
Mhm.
It's like, yeah, you know what? I should probably do that. Let's do a show about this,
Mhm.
and sometimes I just go on and just see what happens. You
Yep.
know, I
So
hate
we're
scripts.
yeah, no, we're talking about revamping shows and seeing if what you're doing is working for what you're wanting for your show. Now you notice like this microphone that I'm using here is a lot different from the one in the bottom. That's because over the years I've got two studios. I've got this here for live streaming, so that I'm here with the lights, a little more sound padding with a condenser mic. With it's a little lower end, but Facebook and social media places do a lot of compression. When I put things out to my RSS feed, I need a higher level of quality in that audio. So those little things you see spinning around, I've got the microphone that I use, the Samsung Q2U, into the PodTrack P4, which is a recorder. I don't use the computer when I'm recording my podcast. It's all done into that little guy, with headphones and high quality XLR cables that are balanced so that I get a really good professional studio sound from that in my basement, which my basement is also my media room. And we'll get into that a little bit more about the acoustics down there and why we moved it down there and did the setups as opposed to the office here, with all of that. And Matt, you're doing a lot of live streaming. So like when
Mhm.
it comes to that, you need the audio to sound as good as it can live on camera for here and for YouTube.
Yeah, I do my best, and as we found out backstage, sometimes little hiccups happen for some reason. My tower, and mind you, if you've watched the show, you've seen me before. Even my direction of where I'm looking is a little different
Mhm.
because I just rearranged my studio. That was part of like a, I guess you can call it a mini revamp, but it was just time for me to just redo some things. I wanted to move some things, so the tower decided that it was going to fit right here for now. And for some reason, she's cranky today. She is very mouthy. She is. If you guys can hear it, I do apologize, but I'm working on it. And but yeah, you're 100% right. Like when you go live, like I don't have the listen back like you have. Like you have the ability to hear yourself. I hate my voice. I don't know how anybody watches my stuff or even listens to it, but I hate my voice and I don't have that ability. So I rely on my guests, my co-host, the audience themselves to listen and see how that works. Now I do go back once in a while and just check in and see, okay, what's working, what's not working, what did I do different for this show, that show. Um, but most of the time it's all a matter of, like, we're going to be talking about the equipment, just tweaking, just
Mhm.
little here and there, and even the slightest little thing can make a difference. Like, example, the mouthy one today went from the other side. I have an L-shaped desk. It went from one side, fine. Went to the other side, problem. So okay.
And this is one of those things, if it's making it through, because I do have a ton of filters that are put on this to keep that from making it out into the stream. So you guys might not be able to hear what we're talking about.
Yeah,
We can hear it on this side. And if you do hear the buzz, let me know down in the comments. Um, but yeah, when you fix your studio, when you're moving things around, you're gonna have things that pop up like that have to be troubleshot.
yeah,
Sometimes it's just you're gonna have to go live with it. We did a lot of work before jumping on here to try to get that buzz out, but it's still there.
yeah,
It's one of those things as a podcaster because my stuff's coming out weeks, sometimes months after I record it and edit it. I have a chance to take that out before it makes it out to you guys. But when you're doing a live show that's on a schedule, like Matt, you've gotta you've got to hop on there and just kind of roll with it. So these things are going to happen, and that's your goals when we're looking at actually revamping a show, doing any sort of show planning at all for making content, whether it's a live stream or a podcast or a YouTube. These are all different types of show that require different pieces of equipment. They also require different types of planning
yeah,
because some are going to work better for goals than others. So when you start out with your show, the biggest thing to think of, whether you're launching a new show or you're revamping a show to try to get more out of it, is your goal, and you really have to sit down and think about why you're podcasting, or
yeah,
why I keep saying podcasting because I'm a podcaster, or why you're creating the content that you're creating. And it
yeah.
can vary from show to show if you have multiple shows. So, just to give you some examples, I was in there's a coaching session for podcasters and content creators that I attend every Saturday. And some people were talking about their goals. Some people are growing a business. Their goal is to use that as lead generation for an established business. I have a show that I've done that with. It was amazing. I made quite a quite a bit off of having that. Um, there's other some people just want to meet people and talk to people, have interesting conversations. Maybe you have something like ghost hunting that is a niche hobby that you're just looking to connect with other people of like minds and interest.
Hmm.
Then the quality of your conversations is going to be much more important than the number of people who are tuning in and listening to your show. Now, if your goal is monetization, and to grow influence, that audience number and that downloads per episode in 30 days or above 30 days, depending on how you're wanting to interact with guests, that's going to be the number that you're looking at. So we're going to take a minute, kind of talk about our goals. You can see our thought processes in how we are creating our content. You can see our thoughts on why we make the decisions that we make with the shows that we host and produce. So, Matt, what's your big driver in? You can pick one show or go through a couple of them. What's your big driver in your shows?
Well, I think this will tie in, and I'm glad you asked that because this will tie into the topic today, and that's revamping.
Mhm.
It started out just networking. That's all I wanted to do. I started my career, I guess you could say, the video career, the content career, just wanting to do like a paranormal 101. That's all I wanted. It wasn't until Scott, Mr. Fedora, that told me to do the show and get a show going, and that's when I started wanting to network. I wanted to help, teams and groups from all over. And then again, show evolved. I met two other individuals who wanted to learn the podcasting side of it. Some of you may remember Carlos and Sarah, Lurker and Squeakers. We started our own show, and then that turned into something else, and that turned into something else. Currently, it's more of a not just the paranormal, like with the new show, The Wicked Queen. Felicia and I are going to be starting. It's more networking with everybody. It's broader. The network community is now more than just the paranormal, and so that's where we're at right now. And it's taken time. Like it's baby steps, and I think that's anybody's goal.
Mhm.
It should be. I mean, don't just jump into monetization. I mean, Tanner, how many times, brother, have you and I said if we could do these for like our main source of income, we jump on it. 100%. I would.
Mhm.
If I could be a full time broadcaster, sucks to be everybody, but I would do it. It would be a troublesome thing for this community, but I would do it.
Mhm,
But realistic, realistic goals.
mhm. Now, I do know several full-time podcasters, and there are things that come along with that that you wouldn't expect, especially in the paranormal
Hmm.
state. So looking at my shows and the goals that I have, when I started Ghost Hunter Advice, I just wanted to put a resource out there for people that were getting into the paranormal that I wish I had
Yeah,
when I started. So when you look at that, the goal for this show is influence. I want to influence, teach, and
yeah,
entertain people. So that download number does mean something to me, but the real metric I look at is feedback. How much engagement am I getting from my audience? I absolutely want to keep my listens and my episode downloads at least above 3 or 400, just so I know I'm getting
yeah.
through to people. But I'm looking at those numbers of emails. How many people are sending me questions on the emails? How many people are sending me just emails thanking me to ghosthunteradvice@gmail.com for putting out the content? So that's really a driving force there. Okay, I'm making a difference for people. That's fantastic. The advice matters and they like it. Reviews are another good one. You know, if you want to head over to Apple and leave a review there, that really helps. It helps keep me motivated, but it's a metric that I track for success
Hmm.
on the show. Um, and also now I'm looking at, okay, how many people are following my advice and using my affiliate links? There's a monetary thing there. Yeah, it helps me keep the show because doing this stuff is expensive, but it's also all right. How many people are actually doing the things that I'm telling them to do? And it lets me know if my advice is really resonating with people at a couple of different levels. So I look at affiliate link clicks. I look at the number of emails that I get. And I look at how people are and the number of people that are listening to the show. Those are my three metrics. When I see one fall down, I know I took a misstep or I went in the wrong direction. Killer Prose, my writing podcast originally started just as an audio diary of my journey learning how to become a novelist and learning how to write those books. My path to becoming full time because that's my goal is to be a full time writer. Um, it changed. I found that there's a lot of stuff that I didn't know, and at the time, and even now, I have a kid. I can't just go back and get an MFA in fiction. I can't go for those degrees and make those connections in school. So I started really focusing on getting high level, high performing authors, publishers, and industry people on the podcast so that I could talk to them and network them. And that podcast has opened doors. So on that one, again, I look for feedback. I look for the amount of people who are listening to the show, but also who is reaching out to me that wants to come on the show, who's saying yes, and how good are those
Yep.
conversations.
And
The
I will say, if anybody hasn't looked at Killer Pros or seen what you do with your writing stuff, I'll tell you right now, folks, his live writing sessions really helped me out. And if you know me more than 10 minutes, I am not a book man. Unless it's a pop up or a coloring book, I have no. I don't care for books. But Tanner actually here was the one who motivated me to start my own book, and which I have, and hopefully, fingers crossed, I can motivate myself to finish it this year and get it out there. But that's just something that for me I take away, and that's something I think all of our community, whether it's paranormal or not, you can take away from any show. You can always learn something.
Mhm. And that's one of those things when I'm looking at it, like that feedback there is something that lets me know, okay, the live writing sessions work. Whenever I stop doing them, I have people reach out. So if I stop doing things and people start reaching out to me, hey, why aren't you doing this anymore? I know, okay, I need to put that
Hmm.
back in. But I'm going to talk about a misstep that I had. So this was something last year, and we are at the end of the year here. So I'll talk about what I'm doing to revamp my shows. Matt, we'll talk about what you're doing to revamp your shows. So again, you can see what's
Yeah.
happening here. With Truly Odd Studios, which is my media brand, I started looking at my shows toward the end of the year. What's performing and what's underperforming? What do I want to move forward with? And what are the goals for these different properties? Ghost Hunter Advice took a major dip. I went and started doing more live streaming over the last year than I did with actually producing the more produced audio that I was putting out on the podcast RSS feed. So I lost a lot of listeners. That number went down. My engagement went down. I think I got 2 or 3 emails over the last year because people are just engaging with my content. They prefer to be able to flip their phone open, go to their podcasting app, and just listen to me whenever
Hmm.
they can, and to engage through emails. So my audience, even right now doing this show here, All of our live audience is coming through Matt's, because Matt's the live guy. But so that let me know, okay, so I walked in the wrong direction, and I really need to step back into audio, which is what I know. That's what I'm good at. Um, so this studio is my live stream studio. This is where I write. So this is actually my writing studio. I kept this microphone and decided to keep this for the live writing sessions. That's the only type of live content. I'm doing this special with Matt, but that's the only type of real live content that I'm doing now is just those live writing sessions. And then downstairs, if you look at all of these little things that are spinning around me and Matt, so that is actually the podcast. That's the stuff that I use to make Ghost Hunter Advice. I invested in a Zoom PodTrack P4, some good dynamic microphones, some studio grade XLR cables, and really put more into the audio production. It doesn't click into a computer. I go downstairs. We've set up our media room, so we have a room that just has great acoustics. We've got a 110-inch projector screen down there. That's where we go to watch movies. Massive L-shaped couch, a lot of soft objects, and then I put up a little bit more sound treatment, which made the movies more enjoyable. But the microphones are there too. So for Murder We Drink, which is the podcast that Kristen and I are currently in development on, we have a place to sit down there to relax. We have a bar. We have lighting down there, which is it just kind of sets the mood. We're not doing any video or anything at all, but we've got this really comfy, cozy place to go sit, relax, and record amazing sounding audio that I then go into and edit for the show. I also put more into the back end. I invested into script to help cut down on the time that I spend editing, because editing a 30-minute to an hour-long podcast episode, when you really get into it, you master it, and you're going for, Wondery or like a big studio sound, you're looking at 4 to 6
Yeah.
hours of editing on the back end for that week for one show. And I do 2 shows and am in development for a third.
I think a lot of people do forget
So
about how long editing really takes, and I think for me that's one thing that really pushed me for the live stream and not the recording side.
Mhm.
Because, to be honest, when I started it, I didn't have time. I didn't have time to edit, and I like the live interaction, as you said. So, the editing part. I mean, in the paranormal field, even just reviewing evidence takes for frickin' ever, and that's part of the job, so to speak. That's what you have to do. Podcasting. I didn't have time for it, and I
Mhm.
don't like my voice, so that was two things that kind of was like, yeah, I'm just gonna live stream this crap. It'll be easier.
Man, that's one of the things, and these are the broad strokes when we're talking about
Yeah.
revamping a show, and then we get into like the nitty gritty. So when it came to revamping Ghost Hunter Advice, something that I also do is I go into Apple Podcast Connect. So that's where Apple holds its stats for its podcast. Now, 40% of Ghost Hunter Advice is consumed on an Apple product in
Mhm.
that one app. So it gives me a really good indication of what's happening. And then I've got, I think 20% is done through Spotify, and they have the same metrics. So I jump into those dashboards, I claim the show, and I look at who's listening to what episodes. I look specifically in Apple, I look at the different episodes and different segments, and I see how many people are making it all the way through an episode. When I notice a large number drop off at like 15 minutes, 30 seconds, or 15 minutes, 4 seconds, or 1 minute and
Been
2
there.
seconds, um, I go to that part of that episode and I look and I see what that segment was or what I started talking about. And I do that on multiple episodes where I just go through and see where I'm losing people. And if I notice a pattern where maybe I'm spending too long with an opening just talking about things that aren't relevant to the core of that episode, which was one of the big things that I was losing people on, I know, hey, I need to take that
Yeah.
segment out. So I'll take that out. And when I do that, I start seeing that on future episodes, things ticking up. I also look at episode names. If I see an episode underperforming that I thought should have performed, I'll play around with the title a little bit, and a lot of times that'll up the downloads for that
Hmm.
episode. Because it's Ghost Hunter Advice, I've found if I answer a question or ask the question in the podcast title, the episode title, it gets found more and consumed more. Um, what about you? What are some metrics that you look at? for numbers when you're making a decision?
It depends. It depends on if I'm doing a series. If I'm doing like a series on something like cryptids, theories, whatever, um, I look at what others are doing. What are other like YouTubers? I used YouTube so much, and it's not even just for the viewer side of it, like how many views. What I'm looking for is the description, and like you said before, the keywords. What are people, the hashtags, stuff like that? What are they putting in? What are they searching for? What are the top searches? I've used Google for that, um, and I use that, and I'm going to start again revamping with the new show. And I'm going to use that to my advantage because people don't under. I don't think a lot of creators understand the importance and the power that a hashtag has. If that keyword comes up, like even in my TikToks, which you'll have to excuse me from looking down and away. I'm watching on all different where we're streaming, and apparently I'm on TikTok, so I was looking at that. But you look at the hashtags, and if you just put in like say paranormal, there's been 4.6 billion, not million, billion with a B searches for paranormal on TikTok. So I'm using that hashtag. I'm using it. Same way with YouTube, same way with that. And then afterwards I look at where like what shows do really well. Like I have a subscription to YouTube Buddy. I look at that. That tells me how many views I'm getting, how many subscribers, pluses, minuses. It tells me everything in the YouTube Studio, and I'm looking to see, like you said, time frame. When are people watching till? When are they not? Um, those who know me, when I have Paravid Studios going and I do these videos and stuff, I'm known for my countdowns. Everybody knows me by my countdowns, shorter countdowns. People don't want to watch a minute and a half of a countdown, 30 seconds, 45 seconds at most, and that's the thing that I had to again revamp. Or what kind of intro am I doing? And that's led me to upgrade what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. The intro, every time I come on live, it's usually "What's up, everybody?" People watch that, they like that. Happy hauntings, my catchphrase. That's another thing that they like. But also, what kind of guests too. And nothing against any of my guests, because my guests have been really good. But nobody wants a guest to just sit there and go, "Uh huh," and nothing else. Like, how long have you been in the paranormal field? 10 years. Okay. What was your favorite experience? I don't know. They don't want that. They want interaction. They want the fun. They want the excitement. And like you said, even with your topics, I love your show and what you're doing because you're informative, you're educational, and you're more serious than I am. I'm just a goofy SOB, but you're more serious than I am. But the way you present it isn't like I'm being force fed. It's not like a teaching. It's more like hey, I'm counseling. You're more of a counselor. And that's what I love about your show and what I love listening to you is because I think outside the box. You open up that Pandora's box of ideas for me, which I'm sure Brian and others really love when I start getting more ideas. but but yeah, it's just a matter again on intent. What are your intentions? And I would say take whatever we say to heart, but also create your own way of doing it. Like what works for Tanner doesn't work for me. He's more of a scripted, laid back, cool type of individual. I'm a goofy SOB. I'm off the hip, no script, and I just kind of see what happens. And for some reason, people like that. I don't know why they like that. I still don't know why any of these people watch my stuff, but whatever the reason, they do it, and I enjoy it. I enjoy it's literally like therapy for me.
Mhm. That's one of the big differences there. So where my shows are also usually
Mm,
solo shows. So I'm jumping on this year. I noticed people do want to hear more from other people. There's some things that I want to be able to give to my listeners as far as, hey, these are careers that are parallel to the paranormal if you want to get into
yep.
it full time. So I'm interviewing property owners, real estate, and the paranormal, and running different Airbnbs and different businesses around tours. So I'm getting into that on Ghost Hunter Advice. But like next week, my show is about a
Mm,
portation. That'll be coming out later. It's a deep dive into the phenomena, and I am pairing that with stories from cases from other investigators, sometimes that I've seen it. But I go back and forth from having scripted content that I'm performing. I don't want to say reading. I'm performing that scripted content to just talking
Yeah.
like we are here, where it is a little bit more off the cuff. So I go back and forth usually so that I get times, dates, and names right because I am talking about real life hauntings. I am talking about those real life things, and it is more informative. Think about those like when I set this up, I loved unsolved mysteries.
Same.
Back the paranormal content that we had before that it got super sensationalized and just absolutely nuts, where it was more factual, instead of sensationalized, and that's what I brought into Ghost Hunter Advice, and that's a vibe that I found, that I needed to keep because I really started getting more into these stories from the haunted. Advice from the pros, stories from the haunted, that is the
I
tagline for
love
my
it, by
show.
the way. It's
Um,
catchy.
people thanks. But, I learned that a lot of my audience didn't care about those stories from the haunted outside of using those as teaching points and examples for what we're talking about in
Hmm.
the episode, and that's what had me launch, Haunted Encounters Hotline because I love, doing those stories. So that's another show that is in development that's a little bit more hands off for me because it is mostly call based. But I set up a hotline for that for people to call in and share their stories and information. I'll plug it real quick. It's one actually, you know what? I'll bring that one up. So that one, if you wanna call in, it is 1-855-25-HAUNT. That is 1-855-254-2868. You got about 2 minutes there to record a voicemail and tell me your haunted story, and we're putting those together into a
I love it.
podcast. Um, it's a really fun project. I've heard some great stories. We actually switched providers because the company that we were using for the phone number went
Oh,
under. So I had like 10 or 12 people call in, and I lost all of those stories. So if you've called in, just call in again, tell me that story again so that we can get that on the podcast. But, that was one of those things that show came out of the feedback that I got from Ghost Hunter Advice, and that was something that I wanted to do, but in order for me to do that, I have to connect with another
hmm,
audience, which brings me another set of goals. That's expensive. I have a toll-free call number for people to call in, and as I add minutes to those recordings, 'cause we're at 2 minutes right now, my goal is to get up to where people can do about
hmm,
5 minutes. It costs more money, so I need a big audience that I can monetize through ads or premium content for that show to keep it going.
100%.
And I've set, an 18-month goal on
Yeah,
that.
100%. And I love it, by the way, a paranormal hotline like that. So, folks, if you're watching now or in the future and watching a replay of this, share that out because that's it's new. I've never seen it, and I love the idea
Mhm.
by it. And I mean, who doesn't like a good ghost story?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, like, it also, like, from a research perspective, let me know your name and the state that you're calling in from, or say anonymous, but give me your
Hmm.
region. I am tracking the type of phenomenon that happen in different parts of the country, different parts of the US, just to see how those stories change, or the activity itself changes. But again, it all comes back to goals and it comes back to what the audience wants. Because when you create content, it's not something that you're doing for yourself, and you do have to cater to your
Yes.
audience. So you have to track those. You have to find a way to track those metrics. In podcasting, we have that built in. We have those KPI, those dashboards that we can use to track shows. Um, it's a little bit more complicated with different types of, content, like writing books. That is,
Yep.
dollars. Are people buying the book? Because it takes a lot. If you watch the last episode of content that I did with Haley, I actually got in and showed a project plan for one of my books. Um, in editing alone, I'm spending between $1,100 and $2,000, and then there's the marketing on the books, and then there's the months and months that are spent researching and writing those. So that is a business. So people vote with their dollars, and I go by that. I also look at reviews and see like what people liked, what they don't. I'm gonna get one-star reviews where they're like, "You need Jesus. You should not write horror." And I throw those out. But if somebody's like, "You know what? It just kinda lost me. I don't like the way this character developed or how this thing was done in scene 2 or in
Yeah.
act 2," then that's like, okay, I'll look at that and see if that's a common
Yeah.
thread for people.
And I know for me personally, and like I said, I'm not a book type of person, but if you are interested in something like that, or even the podcasting side of it, do what you know. Like my book is
Mhm,
about the paranormal. Why? Because I know the paranormal, and it's my own spin on it. But you're absolutely right. The amount of research that it takes to do any of these things is ungodly. I mean, it takes a
mhm,
lot of time, and that's I don't want to say that's why, or I'm taking the lazy way out with the live streams, but I want to learn with my audience if I'm bringing somebody on.
mhm.
I don't do my research on these individuals. I want to learn about them. I want to learn about them with the audience, and I don't know. It's just one of those things, and I will let everybody know, plain and simple. You might have a goal, but your audience may have another goal for you. So
Mhm.
be very flexible, because I'll tell you right now, even though I am a live stream type host, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make my own content. I wanted to just stay behind the scenes, don't be in the spotlight, and just upload videos. I just wanted to be an upload creator. But here we are. 5 years later, here we are.
Mhm. Mhm. Now, one thing too is like size of audience
Hmm.
with that. The size of your audience and the people that you're going to reach doing live streams is a fraction of what you're going to reach with a blog or audio content. The majority of people will listen to audio. It's like a 15-to-1 ratio. I think the top performing shows have less than 10% of their audience actually watch the
Mm.
live streams. And then just video in general, because it's easier to consume when you're driving and stuff, people tune into that. That was a big driver also between me picking between audio and doing live streams. And that panned out like when the show dipped down and I was at like 400 listeners, I had 4 people who tuned in to my lives when I was doing lives, like 400 listeners, 4 people listening live.
Yep.
There's another podcaster I know. His podcast gets like 4 or 5,000 downloads per episode, within the first
Hmm.
30 days. He's got 20 people watching his live
Yeah.
stream.
And to be honest with you, 20 people during a live is good numbers. It's very good numbers.
Yep.
Even on the Global Ghost Hunt, we have 40 or 50 people in the room watching live. Great. Those are great numbers. It doesn't sound like it, especially when you look at the
Mhm.
aftermath. In the last event, you have over 100,000 people viewing these videos. So 50 doesn't sound like much, but you got to think of it as 90%, if not more, of your viewership will come in the after. It's not during the live.
Yep.
It's not during the live.
Here's the most people have jobs. We're
Yeah.
busy. Even content creator, we're busy. I don't have time to watch a lot of things live. So if there's something I want to catch, I'll go back and get the replay. Or a lot of people do take their live streams, edit them down, and put them out on RSS feed as a podcast. There's several podcasts I listen to that are done
Hmm.
that way. The lives, it's a very specific type of listener. Usually it's a super engaged listener. So if you want that listener engagement, you need that immediate, hey, yeah, people can hear me. Live streaming is awesome. It's its own beast. For me, it just doesn't work. For Matt, it works great.
Well,
So that was a big pivot. I mean, that was when I revamped my show. I stopped worrying about things in the background, stopped worrying about cameras, and just went back to sitting on the couch. If I have a scripted thing, I don't have a computer with me because I'm going right into that little guy right there, that PodTrack P4. I've got my tablet with me downstairs, and I'm going through those scripted things as I write my scripts and put them on Google
yeah,
Drive.
no, I will say, like, that's why I have a two-screen setup. I have a dual screen setup, and for those of you who don't know what
Mhm,
that means, is I have one monitor that's my main one, which is over here right now. It's got the YouTube and Facebook stream of this to make sure I'm not missing any comments or anything, because we found that out before that sometimes comments don't show up. So I'm trying to be diligent, and then I have my other screen, my secondary, which we are on, which I can see the stream from, and
mhm.
which I like this setup because it looks like I'm looking right at you, like you're right next to me, which is cool. But
Yes.
yeah, I lost track of where I was going with that. I'll be honest with you, but but no, I don't do the notes, but every once in a while, there it is. But every once in a while, I will have
Mhm,
those notes. I will have different little key points that I want to talk about. I did that with Aaron Hoffman on his show.
mhm,
I had a couple little notes. I know on GGH Live for the Global Ghost Hunt, I've had notes. When I recorded, which I hated, by the way, I was so awkward with it. When Mackenzie and I
Mhm.
did Centralia, look at the video, watch the video. We are
Mhm.
completely different. I'm acting completely different. Why? Because I'm not live. I'm out of my element.
Mhm.
And on top of that, I want to make sure, like you said, I have my research right there so I know what I'm talking about and I'm giving correct facts, not opinions. And if there
Mhm.
was an opinion, I stated this is just my thought, my opinion. But I was so out of my element. I'm just gonna let you know right now. I was so out of my element. That is not my thing. But it is good to have. Sometimes even us live streamers, it's good to have notes. Keep yourself in check
Mhm.
because the last thing you want is that dead air. You want to sit there and just go and have nothing. It is awkward. It doesn't feel right, and it to be honest with you, it throws you off. Throws you and your guest off, or if you even have a guest, it just throws off the flow. But what
Mhm.
I do like about what Tanner's doing too is if I start recording, I can take that out.
Yes. Yes. Well, let's, I know you wanted to talk about environment. Now we're sliding into that a little bit.
Tanner. As
Um,
much as I do, brother. When it comes to us on a show, who knows? Who
yeah.
knows what's going to happen?
It follows. I mean, there's a
It
logical flow
tracks.
here, but, like, so with that, like, you're revamping your
Yes.
setup right now. So we've been talking about revamping shows and what you might wanna do to revamp shows, which if you have questions, put that down in the comments so that we can see it and we can answer it
Mm,
directionally,
mm.
directly.
Sure. Either one.
That would be something that I would cut out of a podcast. Um,
We're human.
so,
I think.
yeah. So let's talk about like move from revamping your show to revamping your setup. And there's a couple reasons you do that. You're upgrading because you have more finances available to get more
Hmm.
equipment. You can do something to improve sound, or maybe you're just doing it for you. So like what are some things over the years that you've done to revamp your studio setup to get it the way you want it, and what's kind of been the guiding light
Well,
there?
I think to properly describe this and explain this, I started out in my car. Literally had a phone holder in my car, and that's how I did my
Mhm.
lives. Do not watch those videos; they're terrible. But that's how I started, and then it evolved to just a little table. I went to my bedroom, terrible mic, and then I've eventually gotten to where I am today, and I'm still not happy with it. And the only reason why is because I always want to revamp. I always want to better it, but the reason behind it is I think you said it perfectly. It's your equipment, but it's also your comfort level. Where are you comfortable at? And I think a lot of people forget about when you're doing these shows, whether it's recorded or live, you've got to be comfortable in your space. It's got to be a literal safe space for you to where you can be yourself, you can talk, you can think, you can do whatever you want to do and just get away from the outside.
Mhm.
And for me, I went from, like, say, the bedroom. I had a laptop literally on my sock and underwear drawer, balanced out, and it was great. The Wicker Queen was supportive of it, but she couldn't play her games. I was taken away from her, so I wanted to make it better for us. So then I went downstairs, and then I just had a little crappy little desk, and then from there I went to where I'm at now, and it just comes down to you. Like, and then this most recent one, the most recent rearranging, I was filled with a lot of negativity. You guys know me. If you've seen my show, I'm open, I'm honest, I'm an open book, no pun intended. But I've been going through a really rough time mentally. So my studio became stagnant to me. It wasn't like I really wanted to be down here. So what do I have to do that, to fix that, to change it? So I added more things. I cleaned up a couple of things. I moved some things around, and now I'm surrounded by stuff like I've got my daughter's photo here, which I won't show, but I've got like Pikachu stuff. I love Pikachu. I got something my former sister-in-law gave me. I have different things to remind me why I do what I do. My motivators. And I think that's really important whenever you're a podcaster, a host, content creator, writer, whatever. Have your muses, have your motivations around you. Have them right in front of you to where you can visually see them. And that's where I'm at. And
Mhm.
that's why I've been down in studio more. And I almost have my book finished. But
Yeah. No,
But yeah,
same. Yeah.
and that's just something that I think a lot of people forget about. I mean, yeah, you can have the best equipment, but if you're in a terrible environment and you don't feel right, it'll show. It'll show in your content.
Mhm. Yeah, no, similar growth. So my very first podcast was The Covert Investigator. It was a podcast that went along. I was a full-time private investigator. I did primarily covert investigations with undercover work, forensic interviewing, and
Hmm.
surveillance. So I did a podcast about that, teaching new investigators how to do it. Very similar to Ghost
Hmm.
Hunter Advice. And that podcast started, the first 2 episodes were in my car. I'm a surveillance guy. So I had a desk set up in my car. I had my camera stuff set up in my car to do surveillance. And I just, I got a Yeti
Oh,
snowball,
I love those things.
or a blue
Yes.
snowball. Yeah. And, set that thing up, recorded to my laptop, which was running off the power supply and stuff in my car because it was a dead zone and it's a fairly good studio. The first one, I didn't have a microphone. It was just into my phone. The second one, I got the microphone, and then I moved it actually into my office, my proper office, because my original thought was I will do this when I finish a day of surveillance. I'll pull over to the side of the road, jump in the back of the surveillance van, and run a quick podcast episode having to do with surveillance. Um, well, I found that my audience wanted more business stuff, so the show shifted more toward running a business, growing a business, doing sales in that space, and I became an industry expert. I was able to afford a lot more because I had more casework coming in. That show, the first year that I did it, just from the show, from business that it brought in from referrals, brought in an extra, at a minimum, $20,000. The second year brought in even more, and I ended up shutting my business down after the pandemic. I'm just done
Yeah.
with it. But it was, that one was financially driven, and it picked me up in the space. I started doing Ghost Hunter Advice. I stayed, actually moved it from the office down to the basement. I got some sound paneling, and I wrapped the room in the sound paneling, and that's where this microphone and setup came into play. Um, which it was great at the time. It was a very inexpensive. I didn't have to worry about much, and then I started playing with different microphones and bringing in different pieces of tech to experiment with it and talk with it. Generally, like, this is my creative space. I have a bookshelf over on this side, which also helps dampen sound, FYI. If you don't have another way to do it, bookshelves are a great way to absorb some of that sound that echoes back into the
Hmm.
microphone. But I've got a shelf with my old ghost hunting equipment over here. I've got my Geiger counter, my old tri-field meter, and an old ghost box. I've got my books on writing, mystery writing craft, horror writing craft, just English books from college that I'll pick out and just kind of run through if I need to find a way to structure a sentence to work better in one of my stories. I've got some tech over on this side, and then I've got the whole inside. This is a closet. So this is my office behind me, and then I'm in the office closet, and I've got that sound foam and paneling all over it, and then I've got sticky notes for a plot line that
Hmm.
I'm writing for a novel that I'm working on for the first stage of planning everything out and seeing where I am. So I'm surrounded by this creative stuff that just gives me the juice when I sit down and clicks me into writer mode specifically, not podcaster mode, writer mode.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why this is where I do my live streams downstairs. Now things changed. Kristen wanted to get involved. And we're doing this doing this true crime show together where it is a mix of mixology and true crime stories. So heavy research. We're also having to develop new alcoholic cocktails to pair with the crime. So there's a lot of experimentation there. And then we're sitting down on that big comfy couch that I described earlier in our
Hmm.
media room. And we're talking about these cases. We're talking about these stories, and it's as much about the crime and the elements there as it is just the connection between the two of us. The next thing that we're doing, this is just again because of funds and because we don't want to always use our media room as our podcast room. There's a side attic. We have 2 attics. There's a side attic that's accessible. I'm not going to say where it is because we're putting up a bookshelf and doing a secret room there. Um, we're doing some special soundproof insulation. This is what they do in recording studios. This is what they do in like radio stations, and we're making that into not a complete dead zone, but there's just tons of soundproofing, and that specifically is a podcasting room and studio that we're going to set up for, especially once we move into video. So it's the needs of the show. It's like what I'm moving into show wise. I needed another microphone. I needed a way to bring someone in with high quality audio. That's where that P4 came from with the Samsung Q2Us. The Samsung Q2Us were chosen because of the acoustics of the
Hmm.
room. Those microphones performed the best and were the most cost effective. And then the Zoom P4 allows me to use multiple microphones, record in multiple tracks in case there is an issue that I need to cut off of one person's microphone and not edit the other person's. And I get to put together high quality audio productions for that show. The goal of that show is monetization. That show, we are doing premium content and ads on the free version of the show. That one is the launch of a
Yep.
business.
Yep.
So,
And just like
yeah.
you know, the Wiki Queen. Whenever I started doing these shows, when I got the setup to where I'm at now, well, the area I should say, not the setup, but where I was
Mhm.
at, um, she wanted to jump in on this. She's an introvert by nature, but she wanted to jump in and she wanted to start doing her own show. So I had to figure out how was I going to get her involved and how was I going to set up everything. And it's changed over the time, but the way we have it set up now, she's literally like right over top here. Like she's on the other side of me when she's down doing her thing. I'm on the other side of the monitor. We can see each other just by leaning and stuff like that. And with this new show, again, we weren't going to do anything together. Like that was never. She'd come on my show once in a while, or I'd interrupt her show because that's something we love to do. But people like that interaction. We never thought about doing a show together just because we're two separate individuals. I'm very outspoken. I'm very energetic. She's more introverted. She's not as hyper. She can be though, but now we decided to start our own show because people love that interaction. They love the interaction between both of us. So here again, we have to figure out how are we going to rearrange everything to fit both of us. And there is some things that we can think about doing, but we'll get there. It'll get there. And going back, I have to take a step back. You were talking about that snowball mic. That one was ahead of its time, I have to say. That
Mhm.
microphone
Yeah.
is to this day, I that's high quality to me. Those things were durable,
Mhm.
they were indestructible, and they had great quality. Great quality.
Especially for the price,
Yes.
man. They're under 50
Mhm.
bucks. You can get them used, especially if you do a snowball
Oh, the
ice.
ices.
You can get those things used for like 29 bucks at we have a used book and tech store here called McKay's. Go to a used place to get a microphone. The one of my Samsung Q2Us is
Mhm.
used. Another reason I went with that microphone is because when we upgrade to that new studio, we'll be going with the Rode setup for our audio. I am doing a lot more on in-person paranormal stuff, and so the Samsung Q2Us and the Zoom becomes my portable studio when I go to these different places to record the
Yeah.
episodes. Your setup will change depending on the needs of the show and what you're doing. What you're doing is going to change. Your goals
Yep.
are going to change. And that's going to affect your studio, your setup, and equipment. And money's a big part. I mean, I would have gone ahead and got the Rode stuff, but I don't want to spend $2,000 on equipment. I was able to get similar sound uh, with just using the Zoom PodTrack P4, which is about 150 bucks, two Samsung Q2Us, again about 150 bucks, two $20 mic stands, $25 worth of audio cables, and then 80 bucks worth of
Yep.
headphones, and
Yep.
I'm good to go.
And same here. If money wasn't an issue for what I've got going on, number one, we wouldn't have that
Mhm,
wonderful little hum we're hearing. But I would have this place completely soundproofed. It would be literally a soundproof
mhm,
room. And it wouldn't just be that, it would be locked. And yes, there is a reason for that. And it's nothing
yep,
against anybody, but there's sometimes, as you know, we all need our space. We need to just sit and think about what we want, not anybody else.
mhm,
And I would need that. I don't have that ability down right now. It's just kind of, hey, leave me alone. But we'd have obviously better microphones. We'd have a better setup. We'd have she better. You could bet your butt. And I'm trying not to cuss. I know it's your show. we would have at least 8 monitors on our frickin'
Mhm,
wall right now. 4 for her and 4 for me. Why? Because it looks cool, in my opinion. Do I need all of them? Probably not, but I would have that set up. It would be a nice tech setup to where her and
mhm,
I could do what you're doing with
mhm,
Kristen. Just sit on the couch and just chill. You and your wife just sit there on the
mhm.
couch and chill. I would have literally a couch down here for her and me, and we would just sit here and just chill.
It's awesome. So we don't have any screen. We have the big, the big movie screen, but it's not going while we're doing
Mm.
things. It's just it actually acts as a sound dampener. It, breaks up the sound, and it gives me something soft on the wall that takes up basically that entire wall there. But that acts as additional soundproofing when we're recording. The big thing here is, like, when you guys, when you start to revamp stuff, specifically your tech and your setup, really, like, look at the goals, look at what you're gonna need to do so that you don't overdo it. I do not need a
No,
roadcaster.
no.
I will not use half of those features on there. Now the pod track, the Zoom P4, it doesn't have denoise. There's a lot of breaths and stuff that get caught because I don't know if that made it through or not, but like that makes it in on this. So this can't this one right here has a denoise, but it takes off too much of the mid range of my vocals and makes me sound flat when I do a podcast recording, not the live streams, but the podcast recording. Um, but I need those midtones to connect with audience through
Yes.
that medium. Um, so I could have spent $2,000. Instead, there's Descript is an AI editing tool that I'm able to upload my audio to. It takes out all those breaths and does everything that a roadcaster would have done, but it is way, way cheaper, and it cuts off 4 to 6 hours of my editing time on my
Ooh,
podcast
even better.
because all of the tedious stuff, there's things that I don't think of that are just obvious cuts. Take out the breath, take out the take out the false starts, take out the repetitive words when I went false start. It would take out that first one. I used to have to go through and highlight and delete and highlight and delete and play around with the amount of silent space between words to make sure that the cadence was on, so it doesn't sound like it's
Hmm.
edited. The script does that for me, and I don't have to do it anymore. And that was the 4 to 6 hours that it cut off going through a 30 minute to an hour show to take out those
Hmm.
mistakes. So if I would have got the Roadcaster, yes, it's really cool, but it would have been overkill. It's not something that would have been needed quite yet.
Speaking of revamping, I just found this, so I want to see if maybe that'll fix. Hold
Nice.
on, I'm gonna mute quick. Oh, hi. I'm gonna mute
Oop.
myself.
I went no, I went to mute you. Yeah, awesome. Thank you. But, yeah, I mean, that's one of those things, when it comes to your editing, your back end time, when you revamp your studio, what's gonna give you the biggest bang for your buck? Or even if you're not spending money, what is something that's gonna make recording more efficient so that you can do more of what you enjoy and less of what you don't? If you have, it did
Yeah,
help a little bit.
yeah. I've been looking for this. Not
Um,
to go on a tangent here, but I've been looking for this
mhm.
guy for a while now, and just so happened it was right by my foot. Don't know where it came from,
It
but
happens, man.
it's right by my foot. And I was like, I just so happened to look down real quick, and I saw it, and I was like, huh. I don't know where it came from, but I don't know. Don't mind it being dirty. It was just on the floor. Don't judge me, people.
Mhm. No, and FYI, that cut out quite a bit of
Hmm.
that hum. I don't even know if it's gonna come through on the feed that's going out
No,
right
no, no.
now. The person that's listening, let us know if you can
Yeah.
still hear that hum coming through the computer, or if you could
Yeah.
to begin with.
Uh,
Um,
but and something else too, Tanner. We spoke about the revamping everything, but as far as the equipment, folks, we've said this before in some of our other shows. Go within your budget. If you can't afford it,
mhm,
don't do it. I mean, right now, Mackenzie and I's girlfriend, she's just getting into the podcasting side of it, and the content creation, and she's asking about these types of microphones. This is a fine, excuse me, microphone. A little bit more on the pricier side. I'm not trying to boast or anything, but it is a little bit. I invested because this is what I do. Um, I told her, I said, don't, because it may not work. It may not work for her voice and her mannerisms and everything else. She's gonna have to start off simple, start off very
mhm.
simple, very cheap, and work your way up and build that budget. You have to budget what you buy.
And go used. The Samsung Q2 Us, I picked the very first one that I got up. I picked it up for
Mm,
30 bucks. It's a $70 microphone because someone upgraded their podcast studio and sold it. When I upgraded my podcast studio, I sold my mics and stuff at a discount. That's what helped ease some of the financial burden of upgrading the studio. Um, don't Man, it is super tempting. So, I'll give you an example. I just upgraded to the PodTrack 4, and, Shure came out with a new microphone. It's one of the new SM7s. It's the SM7VI. It is a built-in audio interface, as well as being a microphone. So if you have 2 people recording, so when I have 2 people recording, I use, actually, I can do 2 microphones on this one on
mm,
my desk. But for the Zoom pod track, I got that. We can do 2 XLR cables into that recorder and record on the recorder, or I can also use that as an audio interface to go into my computer, if I wanna use my computer as the 4th microphone,
okay.
if I have a guest who's coming in through, Squadcast.
That's,
So
that's
it,
sorry.
the SM7VI will do that. So, you can run everything in, it's an audio interface, you click another microphone onto the back of it, it acts as the interface, and both microphones are recorded on a mono track in the computer. Or actually, I think it does multiple track
Mm,
recording, in the actual Shure software, but it's $400, which honestly, that's what I spent for this studio, and it's one freaking microphone that does it. But yeah, it's really, really cool, and I like it, but when I got into it and started looking at it, it's gonna do the exact same thing as what I have here. I've already got it. I don't need to upgrade. It's gonna be the exact same audio quality. And I will say when you do buy equipment, if it is in your budget, buy something that, has 2 uses. That Zoom, recorder that I use, most of the time when I record a podcast, it is not plugged into a computer. I'm recording directly to the SD card
mhm.
there. When I have a guest, yesterday I had the privilege to interview JD Barker. He is a New York Times and international best-selling suspense author with elements of horror and a bunch of other genres that he puts in there. He's a big name in the field. I was able to bring him into Squadcast because I use Squadcast for those interviews because the sound quality is superior to these streaming services. Um, but I plug that into the PodTrack P4, and I set that to be on microphone number 4, and I used basically my computer and again recorded onto the Zoom recorder itself, so that I got the best audio quality possible. So it sounds like both of us are standing in the studio side by side instead of being done like this because there is a dip in quality with the compression
Yeah.
and stuff. Um, Use what you need, use what you can afford. If you're doing multiple people, like Matt, you guys are recording, if you're recording in the same space in the studio, 150 bucks for a P4, you can record it right there on the device or use it as an audio interface to have all 4 of you streaming from one camera there.
Yeah, when oddly enough, like I have, and I said this before and I showed you before. We have this little
Mhm,
guy, and it works just fine. But the problem is my computer doesn't like it. Her computer doesn't like it.
mhm,
So we've had to again revamp and rethink about how we're going to do things. So the way we figured out the easiest way and the most cost efficient, this microphone is the better quality between the two of ours. Hers picks up more, but this is the better quality. So this microphone, the boom arm is actually in between her setup and mine, and it'll pick us both up just fine. So when she comes
mhm.
on, we have a setup like this on the stream, but she's muted. So all the audio comes from my end, but the audience can still hear her. But you were talking about even like cost efficient second hand types of microphones with dual purpose. This is what I started out with to give you an idea. And I know you guys will remember these.
Oh, man,
Uh huh.
yeah,
This is what I started out with.
yeah.
It just to set of headphones with a microphone on it. It has a 3.5 millimeter jack. Plugged it in, and it worked just fine. It wasn't the greatest quality, mind you, but as far as starting out, I think it was like $10. $10.
Mhm.
That's how I started out. And then I went to another microphone. Then I went to another microphone, and so on and so forth. But these, just like with the paranormal field, you don't have to go high quality. You don't have to just jump right in because, again, we've talked about this before. You don't want to spend all this money just to find out you don't like it.
Mhm. Your audience will tell you if it sucks.
They have. They have.
100%. Um, yep. Oh, no, when I got my first microphone, the whole reason I went with that Snowball is because I had, with, the covert investigator, he was a PI, and he was an audio engineer, and he sent me an email, and it was like, the content is 100% the most important part of the show. You have to get that dialed in, and the more niche you are, the more forgiving your
Yes.
audience is. In Ghost Hunter Advice, I don't think there's another show out there that's doing what I'm doing as far as going into these deep dive topics and stuff. So my audience there was very forgiving. And again, a lot of audio engineers reached out, and I ended up actually taking a bunch of classes in audio engineering and podcast engineering to get the show to where it is now. But they loved the content. They're like, I'm not going to stop listening because I'm not getting this anywhere else. With Covert Investigator, I was talking industry stuff, and I started talking about things that we kept secret. There's not a place to get what I was talking about on that show, is how to do this job. Um, and so people were very forgiving because of the content, but they did mention, "Hey, the audio quality just I love the show, but it is really bugging me. Could you please get a." I think, one of the microphones was a Samsung, it was like a AT2100. It's basically, the Samsung Q2U. They're basically the same level of microphone. Now, I ended up eventually going with the Q2U, but, yeah, they'll let you know, and if you have people who are just awesome or experienced that are listening to your show and they love your show, they're not gonna put you on blast and give you, like, a 4-star or a 3-star or, like, a 1-star review where they're like, "This content is awesome. His audio just absolutely sucks. His mic technique sucks," or whatever. They're gonna email you about it, which, again, put an email address on that
Yeah.
podcast.
Now, unless you have a wonderful community like I have, they will blast me right then and there, and that's
Mhm,
happened. But you know what? That's fine. That is perfectly fine. You just got to know your audience and know how they're interacting. I mean, I don't know, Tanner. You've been in the room when Raymond hassled me. Raymond would just
yep,
hassle me just because it's Raymond. But I know that's how he is. And, even when trolls come on, it's fine. I don't care. I'll just block, done. But they've
mhm,
told me flat out, your audio sucks. We can't hear you. You sound terrible. And even, like, I was using the phone microphone for a while. Then I
mhm,
had to boost to another thing and move to another thing and evolve and whatever. And that's because of Scott. Scott told me you need to start doing these shows. And then I believe him and I sat down one night and he said, "Listen, content's good. You look good. You sound good. You kind of sound good, but you need something more. We need to add something to your show." And he's been my unofficial official manager ever since. And he flat out told me, you need to start investing. This can go somewhere.
mhm.
What you could do, what you're doing, will eventually go somewhere, but you need to invest in it. And I mean, I've moved from so many different non-name brand generic microphones, and they're just fine to use. But
Mhm.
I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from this Vipine, and you know what? I'm going to keep it. Everybody says that
Yep.
it sounds good. Okay, cool. Then I'm going to keep it until it
Mhm.
stops working, until it stops doing what I need it to do. Then I'm going to adjust. Or if I
Mhm.
just
No, that's what
Yeah,
happened with
or
this.
if I decide,
Yep.
I want to take it the next step. I want to go the next step. I want to monetize. I want to start getting sponsorships or ad placements. Yes, or even Tanner and I have talked, recently about doing voiceover work. This would
Mhm.
not be good for that.
Yep.
It wouldn't. It's good for what I do now, but if I want to upgrade that, if I want to upgrade what I'm doing, I got to upgrade the equipment.
I'll go ahead and say, like, if you're getting into voiceover work, the entry level microphone is gonna be somewhere between 100 and $200, and that's just gonna get you through your first couple
Yep.
gigs, before you can really get up there. I'd also get a hood. They make these, like, portable, soundproof panels. It goes over your head. It kinda looks like one of the aliens
I've
from
seen
the
those. I
Alien
thought about just
movie.
getting it just so I could get a nap.
You can use pillows too. That's another thing. Like when we talk about upgrading equipment, if you want to sound like you're in a dead zone, there's a guy who did voiceover work for cartoons at a high level. He got 2 pillows in his arms and, like, wrapped around the back of the microphone and, just to create kind of a dead space, and you wanna get as close as you can, and, like, if I talk directly into the microphone, you hear the
Hmm.
boom or the plosive, but talk across the microphone, and that's gonna give you the deepest, richest part of the voice without having the incredible plosives. Um
After we spoke privately about the pillow thing, because you told me about this. I think it was
Mhm.
yesterday. You told me about this.
Uh
I seriously considered just getting a crap load of pillows and just placing them all around here as soundproofing. Seriously thought about
Okay,
that.
so there's an audio engineer. He is over the learning and development department for a large company now. These are you know what? Just a wild tangent. There are jobs you can get because you podcast and because you know how to do this. A lot of high level sales jobs that I've had, they were attracted to me because I was a podcaster. They said that stood out on my resume more than anything else, and I put my podcast, Truly Odd Studios, producer and host, is on my resume and on my CV,
Mm.
because it is attractive. So he did podcasting, and that's what he did. He had a closet, and he lined it with duct tape and pillows, and that's what he and it was just a cheap little $1, $2 pillows that you get that you sleep on, like standard size pillows from Walmart, and he duct taped those damn things to the inside of his closet all the way around it, shut the door, pillowed the other side of it, and that was where he did his work, and he did voiceovers for, L&D projects. He did a very, very popular I'm not gonna say who it is, but he did a very popular podcast and did that for years, and that was his recording studio, just a closet lined with pillows. Get creative. Don't worry about spending a whole lot of money. You can make a $100 microphone and $25 worth of pillows from Walmart sound like you're recording in a professional, like professional level setup that you would have to rent for 150, $200 an
Yeah,
hour.
and to be honest, like I seriously thought about doing that. I thought I'm just gonna get a bunch of, or, you know, um, the Wicked Queen and I, we like doing crafting and stuff, and we got a lot of foam and stuff. I thought about using foam and fluff for that. Problem though, no wall. There's no wall behind here.
Well, see, you have the curtain
Oh,
there.
I have my green screen. Yeah.
If you Yeah, so you've got the green screen curtain. If you could find that green in a heavy sound dampening, um, type
Mhm.
of fabric, that'd work just
Well,
as good.
you mentioned about the moving blankets. So what my thought, and by the way, post, yes, this is a tangent, but it isn't a tangent because this is revamping. But this is I'm actively revamping my studio. So those who
Mhm,
are saying it's off topic, it's not. Uh, I'm actually going to put a couple of those heavy duty curtain rods, like the really thick SOBs. I'm gonna put those around. Put the moving blankets as a dampener. Put these green screens on the front of it and in between the pillows. So that
mhm.
way it's movable, it's mobile, but at the same time it helps.
Mhm. We're hanging pieces of artwork, down there just to get a little bit more,
Mm.
soundproofing. So we're putting foam padding in the back of them, so that there's no
Mm.
resonance. And then hanging those in the wall so that when you go down, so the whole reason that I have this podcast set up is because it is our media
Mm.
room. So everything folds down and goes
Mm.
away. So my pod stands, they fold down and they're behind the couch and you can't see them. The actual recorder goes into this big coffee table that we have that's our board
Mm.
game table. And everything breaks down. So when we're not using it and not podcasting it, you don't know there's a podcast studio down there. Having those pieces of art, those are like sneaky sound dampening things that you can put on the wall that still make the room usable, but really increase the overall acoustics of the
Yeah.
area. There's ways to do it. You don't have to break an arm, like give an arm and a leg to get this
Yeah.
stuff
I
done.
mean, like right now,
Hmm.
I've got a bunch of different things to help break up the sound because it could be a lot worse. This is a basement after all, and I think the green screens right now, which by the way, the green screens I think were like $15 a piece, so they weren't real expensive. But then I
Hmm.
have like other things, like I have my U.S. Navy flag up, I have a Confederate flag up. I don't know why or where I got the Confederate flag, but I have one and it's hanging up. And I also have a Canadian flag. Yes, Brian, I have a Canadian flag, and that's hanging up, and it does help a little bit, but um,
You wanna confuse people, put those 2 side by side. They're like, "Nah."
That's not a bad idea. Have the Canadian flag, Confederate flag, and then the U.S. Navy flag in the middle. What are you trying to relay here? Yes.
Mhm.
Well, apparently, if certain things happen, they'll all be one and the same here pretty soon. But that's politics. We're not going to go on that. But
Yeah, no.
um,
I'll stay clear of that.
but no, like it is a work in progress, and I've even added like this little. It's like a plastic particle board to help deflect some of the sound, and
Mhm.
it gets rid. Believe it or not, it gets rid of the echo. There was an echo down here, but now instead of hearing it from the side as I talk, I hear it coming from the top. So it's doing its thing. I mean, the sound's reflecting off the monitors, which is reflecting off that, and it's going all over the freaking place. But I'm hearing it from the top side, which means it's working. It's doing what I want it to do. Excuse me,
Mhm.
it's dampening from the top. Now the next thing is going to be I'm going to now that you told me about these, you said about those pillows idea. I'm looking to see.
Oh, you can stick that
I'm
up
looking
there.
to see
Yeah.
where I can put pillows, and most of it's just HVAC. So yeah, and there's some water pipes, but you can actually dampen them using that, and even like foam insulation, like you were talking,
Mhm.
or even they. I can't remember the proper name, but I know in the construction field there's this insulation that goes over top of piping and plumbing and stuff.
Mhm.
It's you can use that. You can put that up, and
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, they make, what we're doing for that soundproof room when we make the actual dedicated studio, they have special it's a board insulation that goes through that is sound dampening that keeps things from coming in from the outside, and
Hmm.
then the room itself is pretty much gonna be all bookshelves, and then pieces of artwork that are specifically made for sound dampening,
Hmm.
then, like, the lighting and the chairs and things that we'll have in there, but, um yeah, I mean, there's ways to go super expensive to get soundproofing, and then there's, like, the pads that I have lining this closet, 12-inch by 12-inch and 1-inch thick, and they're ridged, um, panels,
Hmm.
so they're $12 for 12
Yeah.
on Amazon, and it's not expensive. The acoustic panels are not expensive at all. You don't have to do any of this stuff starting out. Like, listening to earlier, like, we both started in our freaking cars. That's a good enough dead zone for most people. You're surrounded by glass, so be careful and record toward the back of the seat so that your voice is going into something sound. The whole way this works for sound dampening when you're revamping your space, so the reason that I like the acoustic panels is because they are segmented, and I can put one vertically, one sideways. Sound waves exit your mouth. They're going to hit a flat, hard surface and bounce back into the microphone. So I have directional microphones. So it's only recording what's coming out of this side of the microphone, and I break things up with those sound panels and with books, on a bookshelf, and it keeps those sound waves from making it back to the microphone at all. Now, there's a little bit that makes it back off my computer screen. I'll turn off my denoise, and, you hear the breath a little bit more. I don't know if it's making it through the things that I have on here, but if I speak up and move away from the microphone, you'll get a little bit more of a reverb.
Hmm.
Not much because of all the treatment and stuff that I've done here. Where's that out? And I'll turn my noise canceling back on. But, this has that. The podcast, the one that I use in the basement doesn't have active denoise, so it's everything that I can do in mic technique to keep that from happening. So you can either use tech to cover things up or, work on your setup and your podcast technique.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's you can take it piece by piece, whatever you decide and however you want to do it. Obviously, I'm not where I want to be in the studio setup, and the Wicked Queen is aware of this. But I mean, even like for down here, I could put in a drop ceiling, and I
Mhm,
could be just fine. But it's just taking your time and what is your budget. But don't stress. Don't stress if
mhm.
you can't do it. Have fun with it. I
And don't
mean,
upgrade or change every year. Like, a lot of people
no,
this time of year,
not
they're
at all.
like, "Oh, I need to change. New year, new me. New year, new show." Go by your numbers. Listen to your audience and what they're saying based on your goals. If you want to upgrade equipment, make sure it's serving your show and your goals. Make sure it's in your budget and then go for it. Sometimes it's just changing technique or learning something.
Yeah. And speaking of learning something, I just realized if you're using Restream to go to a different location, destination, whatever you want to call it, make sure it's on public. I just looked at the Facebook and it said only me, and I'm like, it's on private. Why is it on private? So I just switched it to public. So we
Right.
might get some viewers at the very end of this, but
Yep, I just saw it pop up. All right, man. Thanks for coming on. So I think we covered it all. Just
yeah,
when you're upgrading your show, you do you. It is your show. It is your content. The big thing here is just to make sure that you're actually working toward what you really want to do, and you're not bringing in a bunch of distractions.
yeah, and be flexible, be yourself, and if you have the ability to have a studio, keep it something to motivate yourself.
Mhm.
We all, I mean, you guys see what the camera sees, but what you don't see is what's in front of us or what's beside us or below us. Like this, I found this. For those just joining, I just found this by my feet. But you don't see that. You don't see what's around, and make sure it's something to motivate you, to make you comfortable, make you happy, and make it your safe space. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't.
Mhm.
Just like Tanner says, go with your audience. If your audience is enjoying your content, whether it's one person or 20 people, doesn't matter. If you're enjoying it, they're enjoying it, keep doing it.
Yep. All right, let's both do our sign off. So I'll do mine from Killer Pros. That's the one I actually have a sign off on. So guys, until next time, keep writing and enjoy the process.
And have yourselves a great rest of your night. Have fun, stay safe, and as always, happy awnings.